The day Olivia and Mark moved into their new home, the air smelled of fresh paint and possibility. The quaint suburban house was everything they had dreamed of: 2 stories, a wraparound porch, and a charming garden that begged for lazy summer afternoons. They walked through the empty halls, laughing, imagining their future. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares. It started with the letters. At first, they thought it was a mistake. A plain white envelope had arrived in their mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Just their names scrawled in thin, jagged handwriting. "Welcome home." Mark chuckled, waving it off as a weird neighborhood prank. But Olivia didn't laugh. Something about the handwriting unsettled her. The way the ink pressed too hard into the paper. Like whoever wrote it wanted it to hurt. Still, they ignored it. Then came the sounds. It started small, creaks in the floorboards when no one was walking, soft footsteps in the middle of the night. Olivia woke up more than once, nudging Mark awake, whispering, "Did you hear that?" Mark would sigh, half asleep. "Old house, Liv. It's settling." But a house doesn't settle with deliberate, slow footsteps. One night, Olivia sat curled up on the couch with a book, the fireplace crackling softly. Mark was upstairs, working late on his laptop. She felt it before she heard it. The feeling of being watched. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement in the darkened hallway. Her breath caught. "Mark!" she called out hesitantly. No response. She stood, creeping toward the hall, her heart pounding. Nothing. The hallway stretched out before her, empty, just a whisper of cold air against her skin. Then she noticed the front door. It was open. She swore she had locked it. The second letter arrived the next morning. This one was more unsettling. "You don't belong here?" Mark brushed it off again, trying to ease Olivia's growing anxiety. "It's probably some dumb kids. I'll install cameras." But Olivia wasn't convinced. The letters were growing more personal. The third note arrived inside the house, on their bed. "You can't hide from the house. It knows." That night, Olivia locked every door, every window. Mark rolled his eyes, but went along with it. Yet, the sounds persisted. Footsteps pacing in the attic, the scrape of furniture moving in rooms they hadn't even furnished yet. And then, the whispers. Soft, barely audible, coming from the vents. Olivia pressed her ear against one, holding her breath, listening. "Get out, before it's too late." She stumbled back, nearly tripping over herself. Mark found her trembling in the hallway, and for the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. They installed cameras the next day. Mark set them up in every room. Infrared sensors, motion detectors, the works. "If someone's messing with us," he said, "we'll catch them." That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, listening to Mark's slow, steady breathing beside her. Hours passed, the dark pressing against the walls. And then, a noise. A soft scratching sound from the hallway. She held her breath, staring at the bedroom door, watching the shadow of something move past the gap underneath. She woke Mark, whispering, "Check the cameras." His face pale, he pulled up the footage on his phone. What they saw sent ice through their veins. Mark, in the middle of the night, standing in the living room, motionless, his eyes wide open. And then he moved to the kitchen, picked up a pen, started writing, letter after letter. But his face wasn't his, it was blank, lifeless. Olivia's stomach twisted in horror. He had been writing the letters. The realization shattered whatever was left of their sanity. They tried to leave the house that night, but no matter how many times they unlocked the front door, it refused to budge. Mark kicked it, slammed his fists against it, but it was as if the house had decided. They weren't going anywhere. The walls groaned. Olivia swore she could hear whispering coming from behind them, inside them. She turned to Mark, her voice shaking. What if it's not the house?" Mark stared at her, his breathing ragged. "What if it's us?" Days passed in a blur. Olivia stopped sleeping, jumping at every creak, every flicker of the lights. Mark grew distant, lost in his own head, his fingers twitching in his sleep like they were writing even when he wasn't awake. Then one night, Olivia woke to find him standing over her. His eyes empty, his lips moving, writing. She screamed, shoving him away, but he didn't seem to hear her. He staggered toward the mirror, staring at his reflection like he didn't recognize himself. "Mark," Olivia sobbed, shaking him. "Wake up." But he only whispered over and over, "It's watching, it's watching, it's watching." The next morning, the cameras showed Olivia too, walking through the house, barefoot, leaving letters in every corner, letters she didn't remember writing. The letters spoke of things they never told anyone, secrets they buried deep, things from their past that the house had no way of knowing. Mark stood beside her, clutching his head. "We have to go." But as they packed their things, the house came alive around them. The doors slammed shut, the windows rattled, and the whispers turned into screams. Mark dropped to his knees, clutching his ears, crying out, "It won't let us leave." Olivia grabbed him, dragging him to the door. The wood was ice cold beneath her fingers. They fought, they screamed, but the house never let them go. Weeks later, the house sat silent and empty. Neighbors reported seeing Olivia and Mark one day, and then they were gone the next. Their belongings were still inside, clothes in the closet, half-eaten meals on the table, the TV still humming with static. But the letters remained, scattered across the floors, the walls, the mirrors. The last letter, placed neatly on the doorstep, read, "We belong to the house now." No one ever saw them again.